Hi there, welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us today for this WiCyS webinar. We're so happy to have Ann Johnson here from Microsoft. Microsoft is a tier 1 strategic partner, and Ann is going to be discussing the future proofing against bias in tech. My name is Lynn Dome. I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WiCyS, W-I-C-Y-S, and we pronounce it WiCyS, like we sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood, and we're a 501c3 member-based nonprofit with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. And we do so by creating opportunities. We have an online member forum where all our members can network and connect and join special interest groups such as neurodiversity in cybersecurity, or military spouses in cybersecurity law, or even data privacy. There's those interest groups and so many more. We have skill development training programs brought on by many, many different strategic partners, and those provide year-round benefits for all our members to upskill and up-level themselves in their cybersecurity careers. We have newsletters and webinar series, scholarships, grants, and awards, not only for our annual conference that's coming up March 17th through the 19th in Cleveland, Ohio, but other conferences as well. Our Cyber Talent Emergency Fund is in place for students that are within their last 4 semesters of graduating from college to be able to apply and receive $599 within 48 hours for a true financial emergency, like they can't afford their rent or a medical bill or their car breaks down, so that money doesn't derail them from their cybersecurity studies. Our speaking and media opportunities are in place so members can be what others can see, and that's the cybersecurity professionals they are. In addition to that, we have so much more, including our Job Board Plus Plus, where all our strategic partners recruit from year round, and all our members have the opportunity to upload their resumes and update their profiles and get recruited from that. We have an internship program that launched last week, a veterans apprenticeship program, leadership summits, assistance programs for veterans and military spouses, a fabulous mentor-mentee program where right now we have 775 mentees, 191 mentors, all those programs and so much more. We owe all that as a special thanks from our strategic partners, AWS, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Facebook, Google, Intel, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, that brings us the webinar here today, Optum, SentinelOne, AbbVie, Fortinet, JP Morgan Chase & Company, LinkedIn, Navy Federal Credit Union, Nike, Starbucks, Wayfair, Workday, and so many more. So we have this opportunity here with Ann Johnson as she's discussing future proofing against bias in tech. And so now is your opportunity to ask questions. Ann and I will be answering those questions live at the end of today's presentation. And so as those questions come to you, please put them in the chat at the bottom of your screen and we'll get to those. And also, if you haven't done so already, please kindly subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter. That way you'll never miss a beat of all the WiCyS programs and initiatives that we're launching, and you always stay up to date on the happenings of WiCyS. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic on over to Ann for her to take her webinar from here.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. The work of WiCyS is so impactful when you think about, veteran spouses and the things you do for neurodiversity and all of the programs you have to further women in cybersecurity. It's an honor to be here. I'm hoping I get to see you in person. I think we're getting close to face-to-face collaboration again. I've loved this past 2 years of doing virtual events because we've been able to have such a broad audience. So we're going to go to the hybrid world, which I know will be wonderful. And events that focus on women are a passion for me. I've been a woman in cybersecurity for 22 years now, and we still aren't seeing a huge increase in women, though we're getting there incrementally. We're now over 20% women in cybersecurity, and we're going to keep growing through programs like these. So I wanted to talk today about what we call future-proofing against bias in tech, and I'm going to frame the conversation by starting with the past 12 months. We've seen tremendous challenges in the past 12 to 24 months, and there's just been this no shortage of difficulties that we've had. Some of these things are things that are embedded in the fiber of our society and our system. But what I'm really excited about is what we as a community in cybersecurity, particularly women in cybersecurity, can come together to solve some of the harder problems. And if you think right now about technology and specifically the cyber industry, there are some pretty tough obstacles. For example, the cost of cybercrime, which is now an industry in and of itself. There's no mistaking that it is an industry and it's a very profitable industry. But the global economy impact continues to rise, and it'll be over $8 trillion this year. So think about the impact of cybercrime, $8 trillion this year. That is a very large number. We know that ransomware continues to be on the rise, despite the fact there have been takedowns and asset forfeitures and arrests that have been made. Ransomware is unfortunately very profitable for cyber criminals. We recently published the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, which talked in depth about ransomware and its profitability and new techniques. We also know that there is a very large shortfall in cybersecurity professionals globally, estimated somewhere near 3 million professionals. Part of that has to do with the requirements that we're asking for folks. Part of that has to do with the fact that there's just a really huge, this great resignation of talent from tech and people that are choosing other careers because candidly they're burned out. So we have a lot to resolve in the industry that's going to be challenging. It can all be daunting. But I'm really excited. I'm always optimistic. Look, I wake up every day, 22 years in cyber. This is my mission. This is my life's work. I wake up every day thinking about how we can make progress, how we can think about the correlations between things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and how our focus on diversity and inclusion actually can be greatly impacted by those things. The difference between success and struggle for our industry. So let's start with artificial intelligence and talk about that for just a moment. Artificial intelligence holds great promise to addressing many of the cybersecurity challenges we see today. We are giving our cyber defenders the ability to identify, to detect, and to block events, malware, threats, not in minutes, but we're giving them the ability to block in milliseconds. We're also using a lot of automation so we can save that human capacity for our hardest problems by automating a lot of low-level tasks, This makes AI one of the most powerful tools we have to combat cybercrime because it deconflicts tasks. It separates threat alerts from noise. It really gives the cyber defenders a chance. It gives them an edge and it gives them an advantage against bad actors that are out there. At Microsoft, we know we see about 24 trillion signals daily. That could be a potential cyber event. So we have custom algorithms. We have a lot of machine learning models that separate those. And we have billions of queries that we run every day. It is evident that a human cannot process this amount of signal. We need artificial intelligence. We need machine learning to allow our cyber defenders even a chance to protect this hybrid world that we're living in, both on cloud and in premises. Our security solutions are helping identify threats even faster than before that we did 12 months ago. And just one stat from Microsoft regarding automation, we believe we can automate 97% of routine tasks that defenders were focused on 2 years ago. Think about that impact when you're thinking about that $3 million shortfall in talent globally. If we can automate up to 97% in tasks, we don't need as many human defenders, but most importantly, those human defenders can be focused on really high-level tasks. Also, as an industry, we've acknowledged that we have to have diverse data sets. And this is where the correlation is going to come in very heavily about having diverse humans. We know that it's not enough to have a volume of signal, 24 trillion signals a day. We actually have to have diverse data. Because if you train a machine learning engine and you feed it the same signal, it's actually not going to learn. Diverse data gives better outcomes that give us an advantage over the adversaries, and greater diversity of data will ultimately improve all of our threat intelligence. So if we embrace that same understanding, it's really easy for people to conceptualize and understand scientifically how diverse data helps machine learning and AI better. But take that same understanding of diversity and apply it to our teams. We need to future-proof the teams also against bias in tech, and we need to open the doors to creativity, open the door to innovation, and open the door to unique problem solving. Now, just last year, the World Economic Forum compiled several studies that demonstrated how diversity actually sparks innovation. According to these reports, cities with large immigration populations tend to have higher economic performance. I'll say that again. Cities with large immigration populations tend to have higher economic performance. It's incredibly important that we think about that in the social contract that we're living in today. It is also revealed that businesses with more diverse management teams have higher revenues, and a C-suite with more women was likely to be more profitable. A C-suite with more women is likely to be more profitable. So if you can't have diversity driven by just the altruistic principles of it's the right thing to do, you can actually provide data for folks that are challenging the problem. The other thing we know that diversity does is it drives innovation and it devalues a concept that I continually talk about, which is the concept of groupthink. The actual term groupthink was coined in the early 1970s by psychologist Irving Janis. Janis was a research psychologist at Yale, professor emeritus at the University at UC Berkeley, and he's most famous for his theory of groupthink, which described the systematic errors made by groups when they make collective decisions using the same mindset. In 1972, Janis published a book called Victims of Groupthink, a psychological study of foreign policy decisions and fiascos. And in this book, Janis identified 8 symptoms of groupthink, including illusions of invulnerability, unquestioned beliefs, rationalization, stereotyping, self-censorship, mind guards, literally not allowing yourself to think outside your normal mindset, illusions of unanimity within the group, and direct pressure. What's fascinating, however, was how Janis connected the dots between this groupthink concept and several political fiascos of the era. Things like the Bay of Pigs invasion, the failure to prepare for the attack on Pearl Harbor, the escalation of the Vietnam War, and the Watergate cover-up were some of the things he covered, and talked about how having only people in the room that think and react the same way with the same socioeconomic and demographic and educational background will lend itself to having this group think and will lend itself to not having anyone challenging the group think. Groupthink may be thought to have an advantage. It certainly decreases conflict, and at times it allows for greater efficiencies. But our adversaries know that. And they are looking for the cyber industry to have groupthink. They understand our playbooks. They look for these weaknesses like our biases. They understand how we cultivate groupthink, and they will react to it. According to Psychology Today, even in minor cases, groupthink triggers decisions that aren't ideal and that will ignore critical information. There are highly consequential domains like the one we work in today where groupthink can have much worse consequences, leading groups to ignore even their ethics or morals, or prioritize a specific goal above all other goals, even when evidence tells them otherwise, and also ignoring countless collateral consequences that may happen. So whether it's the year 2022 or beyond, we can expect that cybersecurity challenges are going to continue to evolve. They're going to grow. They're going to escalate. They're going to be well funded, as they always have. We can also expect cyber criminals to continue to be opportunistic, exploiting the current news cycles, exploiting trends in their socially engineered attacks. But let's not, however, forget that these actors are going to continue to exploit our bias as long as the industry continues to have bias. This is why we must devalue a groupthink and we must increase diversity. And if we're to help future-proof against this bias in tech and gain an advantage over our adversaries, we need to create greater diversity to help devalue the groupthink. And we have to recruit people from the very best backgrounds, all backgrounds, outside of traditional channels. We have to train them. We have to examine ways to retain folks, starting by prioritizing and actively listening to their unique perspectives. So I want to dive into this just a little bit more. What does it mean when we say recruiting outside of traditional channels? It means that we need to keep in mind that diversity goes beyond even gender, ethnicity, race. It encompasses accessibility. It encompasses a level playing field for people of all abilities, all educational backgrounds, and all socioeconomic backgrounds. One of the biggest biases we have still today in tech is the need for people to have a STEM degree from a university or a college. We need to get out of that headset. Events like the one today with organizations like WiCyS who focus on recruitment and retention and advancement and mentoring. By the way, WiCyS does a brilliant job of mentoring women if you haven't taken advantage or become a mentor. These organizations are critical in having important conversations about the industry as a whole is evolving and how it's approaching and implementing important steps. Now, currently, a lot of folks talk about hiring. We talk about hiring, the concept of, the lack of diversity in tech and the lack of diversity in cybersecurity. And it is true that we must dramatically increase the number of women, non-binary, and people of color when we recruit. However, while we have acknowledged the issues and have implemented efforts to get people in the door, we also need to examine how we train and how we retain this talent. while also educating those in our industry who are resistant to this change, either consciously or subconsciously. We often know that smart technologists with non-traditional backgrounds drop out of STEM careers. Studies have shown us that up to 52% of women will leave technology fields during the course of their career. That is nearly double the percentage of men who quit tech, by the way. And for those who think it's important that women don't enjoy tech, 80% of women in STEM say they love tech. The problem comes down to not women's love for tech, it comes down to culture and people feeling like they can bring their authentic self to work and do their best work. Retaining talent is what we think about all day at Microsoft. And we have to ensure that we keep everyone happy and excited about doing their best work and coming to work every day. I fundamentally believe people show up at work every day wanting to do their best job. It's up to us to create an environment that they can do their best job. It's why we kicked off the Microsoft Cybersecurity Professional Program a few years ago to help aspiring cyber professionals as well as late-stage career changers to learn skills to start in cybersecurity. To date, we've trained over 5,000 people, spanning across a diverse range of ages and abilities. These are the type of investments that all organizations are making today that are critical to changing and creating a diverse pipeline of talent from all ages and all stages of career. Implementing these important steps, recruiting, training, retaining folks outside of traditional channels brings greater diversity of thought to the problem solving. It's the first step to ensuring we are putting our principles into practice by taking a people-centered approach to the research, development, and deploying of all of the tools that we have at our disposal. And while the cyber challenges we face today are unprecedented, I wake up every day optimistic because I truly believe that the machine learning and artificial intelligence combined with the power of people remains one of the best tools we have to confront our present and our future threats. And ensuring that our AI systems are built without bias, that our data does not have bias, that our people are hired without bias. These are the things that are going to allow us to grow trust. They're allow us to grow greater diversity of teams, greater diversity of data, and we're going to move closer each day to future-proofing against this bias we have across all of tech. Investing in diverse cybersecurity teams isn't just the right thing to do. The future of cybersecurity and our ability to defend actually depends on it. So if we are to future-proof against a bias to tech, it's hard work, it's daily work, and it takes investment by everyone. I'm counting on all of you. I want to thank Lynn again for inviting me to join you today. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions in our Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And that was a great, my gosh, that was a great webinar. Lots of wonderful information. And I myself, I'm going to go back and listen to this recording to make sure that we're all digesting it. So we do have some questions that have come in. And the first one that I'd like to tackle is, what are the biggest challenges that you faced when entering into this career? So tell us a little bit about you, how you entered, and just the story of Ann Johnson.
You know, that's a great question. So I always start the story by telling you that I was supposed to go to law school. So I had a scholarship, I had an admittance, and the summer before, and I grew up in a family that was very economically challenged. You need to understand that. I put myself through school, loans, scholarships, grants, etc. And I looked at that and said, okay, I have a scholarship for tuition and fees, but I still have to pay for housing, and I may have to take out a loan to, still need transportation. I have to eat, and I have to buy books, all those things as a college student you think about. And I decided to take a break, Lynn. I said, yeah, I'm going to take a break, right? And my parents were incredibly disappointed, right? I have siblings, and only one other sibling had gone to college, and they were very disappointed that I was not going to go to law school. And I said, I'll go back. The famous, don't worry, I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to defer my admittance. I'll go back. Turns out I found this thing called tech. And I found this thing called tech fairly accidentally. As I tell the story, I followed a boy and moved to Los Angeles after college. And I applied at a job at a computer store. I just needed a job. And I didn't have what I thought was the world's most useful degree. I had a dual major in political science and communication with a minor in history. So, there wasn't a job I could walk into, right? So I applied for a job at a computer store, working on their sales floor, selling computers. I'm like, I know how to talk to people. I know something about computers. This was in the early days of PCs, right? And I just grew the career from there. I took every vendor training that was available. I signed up for every course I could find. I took some extended courses at colleges. I'm still not a programmer. I had no formal education. But I really leaned into the technical side. I was a network architect at one point in time. I was a PKI architect at one point in my career. And the way I got into cybersecurity, I was working for a company that was acquired, and I didn't want to. I looked at the acquiring company. I said, it's not really a company I want to work for. And I was carrying an RSA security token. And I was fascinated. I learned everything. It was the hardware tokens. I learned everything about how the thing worked. So I applied for a job at RSA Security. I just out of the blue. I will tell you that this was in 2000. I think I don't know in 2022 they would have hired me. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know much about security. I'd done a lot of self-research, but I wasn't a security professional. They hired me to be a PKI architect. They trained me. They invested. They trained me. And that started my career in cybersecurity. And I'm a technologist at heart, even though I didn't have a technical degree. I love it. And I've again continued to avail myself to every training program I could possibly find and just continuing to grow and learn. Even today, I continue to take training because this career set changes so fast.
It's amazing. So they took a risk,
Yeah,
and they trained you on the job, which is a lot of things that we're always preaching about, building
exactly.
diverse cybersecurity teams of risk and training on the job, and always viewing it as an apprenticeship, because anyone in cybersecurity is always a forever learner. So
Hmm.
reducing the requirements to get in the job, and then be able to navigate through the career ecosystem. So that's wonderful. Great story. I love hearing it, and I'm sure the audience really appreciated that perspective too. So we did have another question that came up about, what about age? And that comes up a lot with WiCyS. We run a lot of different programs ourselves, and there is, some intimidation and imposter syndrome that comes in with when it even comes with age. And so share a little bit about that.
I said to my husband, who also was in tech his entire career, who's retired now, but I said to him recently, I said, being a woman in tech was hard. Being a woman over 50 in tech is really hard. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You have to continually look. Cybersecurity requires you to continually be learning and improving your skills and staying up to speed and those type of things. Fortunately, I have, you can learn a lot from your kids, right? I have a daughter who's 21 this year, and I learn a lot from her about, what's new and hot. But at the end of the day, no one can make you, leave the field, right? And, the things that I'm studying right now, I'm studying how are we going to secure Web 3.0? What does blockchain mean for decentralized identity? How are we thinking about the metaverse? Because that is the next generation. So what I would encourage you is the skills I had as a network architect, by the way, I learned to be a network architect, you laugh, in token ring networks. They're of no value right now. It's zero value other than I understand how stuff works. The skills that I'm developing for the future of tech are of high value. So you have to continually invest in yourself and challenge your employer to invest in you too, regardless of your age.
I love it. So advocate for yourself. And that's something that no matter what age, we're always talking about advocating for yourself and, being able to showcase your talent and to showcase your skill sets. So, well, that brings us to another question is, what are companies looking for when hiring? And what about the certifications that have the most value and weight in this industry? So what are your thoughts on that, Anne?
So I want people to remember that cybersecurity is an industry. So there are human resources jobs in cybersecurity, there are marketing jobs in cybersecurity, there are sales jobs in cybersecurity, there are legal jobs. I'll forget things, but there's engineering jobs, there's threat hunting jobs. Being in cybersecurity doesn't mean everybody has to be a reverse engineer, right? Or everybody has to work in a SOC or be a cyber defender. So what you need to think about when you're thinking about training programs and certifications is what training program or certification best enables you to do the job that you want to do in cybersecurity. There is no one size fits all. I'm not the biggest, I think certs are interesting to develop a baseline that you're capable of learning and skills, but it really does depend where you want to go. And I would tell you that more modernizing of certs, and if you want vendor specific, there's a lot of vendors specific out there. I think you have a brilliant mentoring program. I think SANS does a really great job in education, especially if you can get it employer funded, and employers do tend to fund those types of things. Universities now, almost every major university has a cyber track. You can go, take part-time courses, but really it's up to you. What do you want your focus to be? And then take the skills and the certifications that you need to have that be your focus.
Very good. Yeah, and we also had that Cyber Gen IQ assessment that's baked into the Mentor Mentee program. We just launched that in January, and then we just launched last week the internship program, and we also put the IQ assessment with the cyber aptitude assessment in there too. So those that are listening, check those out on the WiCyS initiatives. It will maybe help you streamline your passion and your aptitude in that area. So another question that came in is I always see bias at my current position. I have been overlooked all the time and they act like I don't exist. And so we do get that question. And again, back to advocating for yourself, but what is your perspective on that, Ann?
So here's what I would say, and it depends on how you've been overlooked. Let's say you've been passed over for promotion. Let me just use that as an example of being overlooked. You need to ask your manager or your leader to be really specific with you. The wrong answer is it's not a good fit, and you'll hear that a lot, by the way. The right answer is what skills do I need to develop so I can get that promotion the next time? Please help me develop a path. You absolutely. The thing I will tell you is that, and I tell everyone this: you need a really good mentor. You also need a really good sponsor and champion within your own company that's helping advocate for your career. It's incredibly important that you build that type of relationship, and then you have to advocate for yourself. So the best way to advocate for yourself is to be really precise, to be really fact oriented, very data driven, and make people be explicit about what you need to do to get to the next step, and then invest, make your own. If the company says you need to develop these 5 skills, but they're not willing to train you, then you may need to invest in training, getting those skills yourself. And then at some point, Lynn, you know this, you may have to make a decision to leave too. Either the manager or the company, right? At some point, it may not be. Not every situation is salvageable, and it's okay. I want you to give yourself grace and space to say, it wasn't me, it was them. Okay. But do all the right things in a very constructive, professional way. And if it doesn't work, then you may have to make the decision to do something different.
Great information. I'm sure everyone listening is going to be listening to this recording as well to be able to take down those notes when they want that feedback for themselves. Another question that came in is how do you engage others to actively listen? Is that even possible? Can you engage others to actively listen?
Um, well, I will tell you the one advantage I have of my education is because I have a communications degree. We spent a lot of time on listening and receiving, and I went through all these courses on it. I try to coach people. I used to, Lynn, you'll appreciate this. For a period of my career, I led sales teams, and I used to say, look, you have 1 mouth and 2 ears for a reason. Use them accordingly. I'll listen twice as much as you speak. But actively listen. Don't listen for how you're going to respond. Actually actively listen. It is so hard to teach active listening skills. The only thing I can tell you is if you feel that may come from a place where you feel like you're being interrupted, and women still get interrupted. I think the studies tell us 2 to 3 times more than men in meetings, is to just politely say, I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. I'll cede the floor to you when I'm finished. And you take back control. Don't let yourself be interrupted. Don't get upset. Don't get, you know what I mean? But just say, excuse me, I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. I'll cede the floor to you when I'm finished, and finish your thought. Okay. If you have somebody that's continually interrupting you and you think they're doing it on purpose, you need to address that one-on-one. You really do.
Great advice. Wonderful. Your mentees are very fortunate to have you in the mentoring program. So another question that came in is I do not have a degree. I am over 18 years in IT and 2 years in cybersecurity. I'm maintaining my Net Plus and Security Plus, and in the future, a CTI cert. I'm also 56 years old. What are my chances of succeeding on the technical side of cybersecurity, not management or senior management?
Well, it sounds to me you have succeeded a lot. Let me start there. It sounds to me that you're 18 years and 2 years. That actually is a lot of success. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. What I would say is lean into the technical courses you think are going to help you be more successful. Like you can learn. We can all. It doesn't matter how old you are. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm during the pandemic. I'm learning to play the piano. I just said, you know what? I've never learned to play. I play the guitar, but I've never learned to play piano. I'm also putting together the Titanic, which is like a 10,000 piece project. But you can learn anything, right? You just have to invest in it, and you have to, but be really precise on what you want to learn. When you say the technical side, there's a lot of technical sides of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a massive field, so decide what you want to learn and really lean in and focus on it. And don't try to be don't try to be level 100 across everything. I will suggest to you that once you decide what you want to do in cyber, really try to specialize in it for a while, because that's what people are looking for.
Great advice. So all this information is wonderful, powerful, a lot of information that you shared, and our audience is certainly appreciated. I'd like to hear from you, Anne. What would be your key takeaway from the, or what, like one major piece of advice would you want this audience to leave with tonight?
People, including me, by the way, Lynn, I wake up days where I have imposter syndrome. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how much success you've had. It doesn't matter what your level is in your career. My advice to everyone is, the old saying, fake it till you make it. Don't let anyone see you sweat. Show up at work every day, put on your armor, whatever your armor is. Everyone has their own definition of their suit of armor that they show up at work at,
Mhm.
and believe in yourself. If you don't have the confidence, fake you have the confidence. Make sure in doing that you have the person you can vent to and the person you trust, your mentor and your coach and your champion. But at the end of the day, don't I'm trying to find the politically correct way to say this. Don't take anything from anybody. Just do
Yeah,
your job, do it well, and don't let people put you in the corner.
yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate everything that Microsoft is doing in the industry, all your support to the WiCyS organization, for your time and attention, for being here today, for the WiCyS members to be able to engage with you, ask these questions, and get them answered. So appreciate all that you're doing, and it's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I love what your organization is doing, and we will stay committed. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ann. Bye bye.